This is a brief tutorial for MBA 634 on calculating values in Excel. You'll note from the course syllabus that the problem assignments and case assignments require that the assignments be submitted in an Excel spreadsheet. Using this tutorial really to stress what I mean by using an Excel spreadsheet to submit those assignments. One of the goals of this course that the BayPath program has put out is that students understand how to actually use Excel to perform some basic calculations. And this tutorial really is focused on making sure you understand how to use formulas for the basic calculations in Excel. I'm told beyond this MBA 634 class that it's critical that students understand how to use Excel and how to use formulas in Excel, because it's an applicable requirement with the capstone class and some other classes down the road. Hence this tutorial to basically make sure you're up to speed on calculating in Excel. And also that's the background behind the requirement within a course that everything be submitted in Excel. So let's proceed with the tutorial. Let me give you a basic problem. I want you to use Excel to calculate gross profit. This will be the example problem we're using here. Now, as you know, or you can see from the readings, the formula for gross profit is revenue minus cost of goods sold equals gross profit. It's a very simple calculation, A minus B equals C. And let me give you some numbers for this problem. Let's assume for this example that revenue is $1,000 and cost of goods sold is $250. So it's a very straightforward calculation. So if I open up Excel, this is an example of, I believe this is Excel 2008, which is appearing on my Mac computer. It would look very similar. The menu bar is a little different on a Windows machine, but the areas we're going to be working with are pretty much the same. So we move a little bit to the spreadsheet. We'll look at, first off, you have the cells themselves. This happens to be cell A1 I've just pointed to with the arrow. It's the little blue area that the cursor has. So that's the very first cell in the spreadsheet. And likewise, you can move over to column B or column C or column D, or move down to row 2, 3, 4, etc. It goes out quite far. The next piece of the spreadsheet that's important is this little FX formula bar that's up on top, and that's where you'll see formulas that you've entered. That's where you'll see numbers or text that you've entered in Excel. It basically appears in that area. So let's start by putting together our solution to our little problem. Well, the first thing we do is we enter the word revenue, and you can see that revenue both appears in a little FX box up on top of the screen, and it also appears in cell A3, which is where I've chosen to enter it. And I've entered cost of goods sold, and I've also entered gross profit. So now I have the three elements that I need to enter into my form to do my calculation. Now let's move to entering some numbers. So we said in our example that revenue was $1,000, so we enter $1,000 in cell B3, which is the next cell over from my revenue heading. And we come over, and you'll also see that in the FX box on top of the screen, the formula box, we have the 1,000 appears. So we proceed to do that. We'll do the same thing. We'll enter my $250 cost of goods sold. And I do that entry. And now, logically, we know the answer to this. If you just simply do the basic math, we know the answer to this is the gross profit is $750. If you were just entering the information into Excel, you did it in a calculator, you did it in a head, you would just enter $750 in that gross profit box. However, that isn't really using the full capabilities of Excel. And what we're really trying to do with this exercise, with this course, with the problems in this course, is also make sure you actually do those calculations within Excel. So rather than entering $750 into that box, what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a formula. Now, we know that the answer to my gross profit is if I subtract cell B4 from B3, I will get the answer. If I subtract 250 from 1,000, I'll get the correct gross profit answer. So what we want to do is we say, well, let's take cell B3, which is in my example $1,000. Note we've put that up, we've entered that into the box, we've entered that into the cell, and it appears in my FX box. And we subtract cell B4 from that, so that's plus B3 minus B4. We can see that's entered in the FX box, it's entered in cell B5. And we hit enter. And magic, you move down to, first off, we move down to the next cell, but we see that it calculates automatically the gross profit at $750. And you see that if I move back to the cell, cell B5, we see that it has the value of 750, which is correct, and we also see the FX box does not have a number in it. It has a formula in it. Okay, so actually put the equal sign in front of it because that's the way it's the convention for Excel and formulas. But it's actually put that in there. Now, so basically what we've done is we've built gross profit, which is created from subtracting cost of goods sold from revenue. We've built it as a formula in Excel. So that's really the proper way to put that together. Now, it's also valuable to do it in case you have to change values. If I came along with this problem and I said, well, wait a minute, I didn't mean cost of goods sold was $250. Perhaps I meant cost of goods sold was $275. Or the boss comes in and says, hey, what happens if our suppliers just raise their prices? What would happen if our cost of goods sold go to $275? Well, you don't have to redo the whole thing. You simply go in here. You would pencil in the new $275 in the cost of goods sold. The new $275 in the cost of goods sold line. Obviously, we've highlighted it with the arrow here. You hit enter. It does the calculation. So now I've subtracted $275 from 1,000. It still has the same formula in the FX line, but I have the new value for gross profit. The numbers change automatically. So when we're talking about using Excel for solutions, if there's a calculated number, something you're calculating, gross profit, operating profit, net profit, percent change, something like that, that you're being asked to calculate during the class. If I go into one of those cells, or you go into one of those cells and change one of the input values, the answers should change as you go down the page. This is a simple example, but that's what we're talking about with an Excel submission. You change one of the input numbers, the results change. That's really the capability that Excel has, and that it's really necessary to use in this class and bring forth in this class, because you're going to need it in the capstone. And we really want to stress that you're going to need it in the capstone. You're going to need it in the capstone. You're going to need it in the capstone. So we want you to pick up the basic parts of that process here. This concludes this brief video. Feel free to watch it as many times as you want, or if you need additional help to use some of the web resources to get a greater understanding, some other videos on Excel. Thanks.